let's throw another googly therefore. Since we've talked a lot about youth factor as well, is Prashant Kishore an X factor in Bihar? Because if there is, as most of the pollsters seem to accept, an element of fatigue, I'm not using anti-incumbency, fatigue with Nitish Kumar, and people are looking for alternatives, is Prashant Kishore that alternative? Now, when we look at the polls, Prashant Kishore is scoring relatively strongly for a first-time debutant in terms of his popularity when a direct question is posed, who do you want as chief minister? And there is a growing sense in these polls that that younger voter, remember Bihar has the highest youngest demographic among voters less than 25. There is a large migrant voter also who is looking for jobs. Does Prashant Kishore in a way address that constituency? And therefore, if there is anti-incumbency and fatigue, is he taking away some of the votes that would have otherwise gone to Tejashwi and the Mahagadbandhan? Pradeep Gupta, is Prashant Kishore an X factor in Bihar in your view, given the fact that he's seen to represent change? Will he capture a section of that anti-incumbency, or is he a media phenomenon?
Rajdeep, first let us try and decode the youth percentage numbers, etc., etc. What is the likely impact when it comes to youth? As Shastri ji pointed out, 25% number among 18-year to 30-year of age group. Okay, this is true, absolutely not a single percent doubt onto this. But here, the big but is here. In Bihar, caste is the most important demography and decisive factor, not a single percent doubt onto that. Caste meaning it belongs 80 to 90% of the voter votes based on the caste. That's the first demography. The second demography is women, which is about 50% in total, but when it comes out to vote, it is 55%. Now, the third thing is the youth thing. Though youth is 25%, but the reality is that how many youth vote? Relatively lesser number of youth vote, and in particular in Bihar, because they are not only migrated for the job, but they are also migrated for the education as well in case of Bihar. That's point number one. The Bihar voter turnout has always been roughly around 55 to 57%, meaning that 25% further reduced substantially, and women voter being 55% and people vote in the number of 80 to 90% basis of the caste still has the strong demography according to me. Second is the women and youth. I'll tell you the basic point for the youth is whether आज के ज़माने में कहते हैं कि पुराने ज़माने में फादर बच्चों को बोलते थे या फैमिली को बोलते थे कि आप ये कीजिए या डिसीजन लेते थे. आज के ज़माने में youth decides or youth influence the parents as well. So that is something phenomena.
Is Prashant Kishore, you're saying, it's interesting. You're saying caste is the basic matrix that decides Bihar. Even if I'm a Mahila, I'm a youth, I look at my caste. I may be a Dalit Mahila, I look for a Dalit candidate possibly. And sometimes we underestimate the power of the Dalit vote in Bihar in our focus on Yadavs and Muslims and EBCs. There is a substantial Dalit vote which often decides Bihar. Of course, Dalits are also divided into various important subgroups. But does Prashant Kishore crystallize this youth factor cutting across caste?
I'm coming to that now. Now, I wanted to,
yes.
This demography play as far as the number of percentage and their belonging, the impact. Now, coming to the Prashant Kishore. See, not a single percent doubt among all these demography we just now spoken out, यूथ इज समथिंग वो सबसे ज्यादा उनको अट्रैक्ट करते हैं. बट प्रशांत किशोर के केस में एक दूसरा पॉइंट भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. यूथ नॉट अ सिंगल परसेंट आउट, बट जैसे मैंने कहा यूथ का रिप्रेजेंटेशन इन एंड दैट टू फर्स्ट टाइम का आप उसका भी हाफ कर दीजिए. फर्स्ट टाइम हम जनरली 18 टू 23 ऑफ एज ग्रुप में बोलते हैं, शायद वो फर्स्ट टाइम वोट कर रहे होंगे. तो आपका यदि 30 अप टू 30 ईयर के ऊपर यदि आपका 25% है तो आपका वो 25% घट के 15% रह जाता है एज फार एज द फर्स्ट टाइम वोटर इज कंसर्न. देन वोट भी वो कम करते हैं, एक वो प्रॉब्लम है. उससे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम अब मैं आपको बताता हूँ. प्रशांत किशोर के साथ चूंकि फर्स्ट टाइम है, दैट इज फर्स्ट पॉइंट. सेकेंड पॉइंट की फीमेल वोटर का जो उसके साथ आकर्षण होना चाहिए, अट्रैक्शन होना चाहिए, इवन दैट टू ऑफ यूथ, वो उतनी बड़ी संख्या में नहीं है. उसके एक कारण तो ये फर्स्ट टाइम है वुमेन के पास, एंड दैट टू बिहार जैसे जो आप एकेडमिक या वैसे ले लीजिए तो उसमें जरा समय लगता है लोगों के माइंड में रजिस्टर करने के लिए उसका वोट और सिंबल वगैरह वगैरह। बट हैविंग सेड दैट, उन्होंने जो एक लाइन ली हुई है खासकर कि आपका शराब नशाबंदी को लेकर, उसके चलते भी वुमेन आज की डेट में जो उनके साथ होना चाहिए था, इवन बीइंग फर्स्ट टाइम, लेट मी टेल यू, वो थोड़ा कम है। तो वुमेन प्रशांत से थोड़ी सी माइनस होती
you're
है।
saying Prashant
थोड़ा
is
सा
thereby,
जुड़ता है।
you're saying Prashant is primarily a male youth phenomenon?
Yes, that's one point. That's one point. Second is that women थोड़ी सी कम होती है, और कास्ट की बात करें तो his belong is the upper caste, तो उसके साथ एक वो another disadvantage है कि upper caste का representation in the total gamut is always going to be much lesser than
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yashwant Deshmukh, what's your view on Prashant Kishore? Should we treat him as an X factor? Because Bihar has always had a large percentage of votes also going to independents and others. We saw that particularly last time as well. Does Prashant Kishore take that vote, or will he take votes of two of the major alliances? If so, which? Does he primarily take the anti-incumbency vote, those who are angry with the NDA?
Well, Rajdeep, India Today's C-Voter has tracked for almost a year his journey from 2-3% to almost 22-23% now, and we have witnessed that journey, you know. But having said that, I have always tried to say this upfront, that popularity rating may or may not convert into votes, and those votes may or may not convert into seats. But he is certainly the X factor. He has certainly changed the narrative of the Bihar election. He has certainly brought in some fresh air of perspective to at least try and destabilize the caste-driven politics of Bihar.
Right.
So that much credit must be given to him. Having said that, Rajdeep, will he be the factor in this election in terms of being a king or kingmaker? I am not very sure about that. But yes, he as an agent of change is likely, as just like Shastriji said earlier, he is likely to take in the anti-incumbent vote as a, you know, and instead of that anti-incumbent vote swinging from NDA to Mahagadbandhan, that part might get struck in between with Prashant Kishore. So while data suggests that 7 out of 10 voters of Prashant Kishore are coming from NDA camp, it looks like he is hurting the NDA, but in practical ways, more ways than one, it might be a net loss to the Mahagadbandhan.
Okay.
One thing, that part is that. And another thing which generally I haven't come across in discussion and in data points in that way is another youth leader, Samrat Chaudhary. People are not talking about him in that way, while he is pretty much right on the target of Prashant Kishore. So if Prashant Kishore is targeting somebody day in and day night, you need to take notice of why he is doing that. Very few people take into point that Samrat Chaudhary is the only BJP leader who belongs to the caste of Nitish Kumar, basically Kurmi Koiri Kushwaha thing. So BJP carrying Nitish Kumar and looking at post-Nitish scenario where they can wrap up that entire vote bank Kurmi Koiri Kushwaha, the only guy in the BJP camp happens to be Samrat Chaudhary, who will be able to do that. That is why BJP has kept him in the center stage. That is why Prashant Kishore, who is trying to occupy Nitish Kumar's space or JDU's space, is finding a very, very suitable person to shoot at, politically speaking. You know, why nobody else is targeting Samrat Kishore? Why only Prashant Kishore is going hammer down against Samrat Chaudhary? So that he's an interesting player. Please keep in mind that he belongs to the same caste group, Kurmi Koiri Kushwaha of Nitish Kumar. And from BJP's perspective, he is going to be there for a long run.
Very quickly, therefore, Amitabh Tiwari, Prashant Kishore, the better he does, presumably it spells bad news for the Mahagadbandhan. They would like Prashant Kishore not to cut into that anti-incumbency vote. Am I correct?
See, essentially, if you look at the bipolls, in the bipolls, the Mahagadbandhan was leading 3-1 in 2020. But when the bipolls happened and the Jan Suraaj party bagged 10% vote share, Mahagadbandhan lost all the 4 seats. So almost 80 to 90% damage in those bipolls was inflicted upon Mahagadbandhan. See, he has emerged as the CM face of voters who are voting for smaller parties and independents, because there is always a 20-25% smaller parties vote share. Now, if you come to the question of who does he damage more, there is a precedent that he has damaged Mahagadbandhan more in bypolls. Conceptually, if he is splitting the opposition vote, he is damaging Mahagadbandhan because that's an opportunity loss for Mahagadbandhan. But as Pradeep ji said, if you look at the social composition, age, if you see, he is getting largely youth vote, so he is likely to damage Mahagadbandhan. If you see the caste, he is getting upper caste and Muslim. So upper caste, again NDA, Muslims, Mahagadbandhan. If you see gender, largely male, female, not because of prohibition, so he's not getting much female support. And socio-economic class, that is middle class and let's say Nuav rich, that is largely a BJP constituent. So in those 83 seats where the margin is less than 5% and where the honors were shared, if he gets 5%, whom does he damage? It will be different in different seats, just like LJP did. 40 seats for NDA and 32 seats it damaged Mahagadbandhan also, which is not talked about. So the damage is different in different category of seats, and he could emerge as a spoiler.
Very interesting the way you put it, that even last time there were certain seats where the Lok Janshakti damaged the Mahagadbandhan that we forget. We only focus on how they damaged the JDU.